Today, however, this estate has become a problem for the next of kin rather than an asset that they can live off on. Over the course of the 21 years I've spent in the life insurance business, I've come across various different methods that people have used in the past to pass on wealth from one generation to another. I think the biggest intergenerational wealth planning challenge that clients face today have to do around fixed assets like property and a concept of choice. The fact is, as parents, we see choice is a bigger conversation today. Children have a choice in the matter of where they reside, what professions they take up, whether they choose to join the family business or not. And we actually, as parents, validate that and encourage it. So when it comes to a massive asset that's being transferred on, which could be property, for instance, in a whole different jurisdiction, maybe even in a jurisdiction that is native to you, but not to your child where they were brought up, the question now arises is, will they be in a position to manage that asset in the future? Do they want to even do that? Or as a parent, if your thought process around it is to create liquidity so that your family can continue living and thriving for the next generations to come, is your priority that I want to transfer property, or is the priority that I want to ensure that they are safe and secure? And if the idea is to ensure that they're safe and secure, another alternative to the fixed asset of property could be liquid cash. Let me give you an example over here. A couple of years ago, somebody very close to me, a friend and a client, came and told me about a big problem that he had. And his big problem was that his father got on a call with him and told him that he was leaving him 180 acres of prime coffee plantation. And I just listened to the guy and I said, people in the world have got bigger problems. How is this a problem? He said, well, my dad told me that he was going to give me this 180 acres of coffee estate. But this was in a rural part of South India, in the hills, where labor is impossible to get. There's a huge amount of money available from that estate, but his father also made him assure him that he will never sell the family coffee estate. To put some perspective on this, the son was born and raised in the UAE, did his higher education in the US, got married to a non-Indian who does not even speak the language, English even, leave alone the rural languages of Karnataka. And the thought process for this guy now is, how am I going to live in the Middle East with a wife who is non-Indian and inherit and take care of a coffee estate which sits in rural Karnataka? It takes about 6 hours to drive to that estate from the nearest airport. The value on this property is probably a couple of million US dollars easily. But the asset that's passed on, while the intention of the parent was to ensure that the family is safe and secure, is now posing to be a significant problem for the inheritor. If I had to redo this situation, I would have suggested that the father use the income from the estate over the years to create a separate pot in a life insurance product which could pay out to not only his son, but even his grandchildren, who could be of any nationality anywhere in the world, to be the recipient of an estate equal to the value of the coffee estate that he wants to leave behind, and ensure that they are financially stable. Today, however, this estate has become a problem for the next of kin rather than an asset that they can live off on. And I'll explain that to you from my situation. My entire family lives in the UAE. Well, at least 70% of us. I, on the other hand, have 2 children. My daughter and my son both have Canadian passports. If my dad thought that his grandchildren were going to now inherit all the property that he created in Karnataka, India, this would pose a host of issues that could come up in the years to follow. One being that as a Canadian citizen, my family would be unable to own property in India. So the passing on of wealth from one generation to the next would stop with it being passed down to me. If I have property in India today, which I decide to sell as a non-resident Indian, and now I need to move that money to the UAE or to Canada or Timbuktu for that matter, this could potentially not be the easiest way of doing it. For me to plug myself out of my environment, out of my job, out of my work life, out of my entrepreneurial life, and to go back to resolve those property related issues may be difficult. To find a buyer for that property could be a serious issue as well. If I look at the Indian rupee and where it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago to where it is today, while my dad may have created a significant asset base in India, just because of the fact that the rupee has devaluated significantly over the years, this asset base has shrunk significantly. So if I now have to sell it, I need to find the right buyer who's in a position to pay me the right kind of price in a market where there is a massive oversupply of property today and fewer buyers. And then I have to find the right legal method of bringing that money back to me to the UAE, which I might then decide to use to invest in property over here. And while I, as a child, went back to India every summer for a holiday, my children in the last 11 years may have gone back to India 3 times. They don't have a connect with that country. I'm guessing that the next generation after them will have it even lesser so. What is the probability of them taking on those assets which were created in India and managing them appropriately? If I have to compare this leaving of property as an asset in a country where currency is an issue, moving money out is an issue, if I convert that now to a life insurance policy, and if I talk about my own situation, had my dad purchased a life insurance policy and invested money in that, in a generic currency, for example, US dollars, right? And if this policy ran till the age of 100, 121, God forbid, in the event my dad passed away, needless to say, a life insurance policy pays out. But the advantage of a life insurance policy, which is whole life or universal life, is it has a payout regardless of whether you pass away or not. This would replace the need for property as an asset class. And definitely what I'm not suggesting over here is that you convert all your property purchases into life insurance policies. But what I'm talking about over here is actively using various other solutions rather than staying with the traditional route of a fixed asset, which may be a fairly difficult proposition for your next of kin to liquidate and manage.